Welcome to ANGST, DoingOK's coming-of-age podcast. Adults never get satanic teens, but we'll help them try one story at a time. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga.
And I'm Clara.
Tune in every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on youtube.com/DoingOK or podcast services around the world as we discuss coming-of-age stories via TV, movies, games, and more. Today's story is...
The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
The Teenage Witch.
On Netflix.
Alright, so this is a special edition of this podcast, which, as I said, is both here on YouTube, but also will be audio form. We'll have links down below if you want to listen to the thing on audio. Usually I have Keith and Kaylin here with me, but we're doing a special one because these two lovely ladies watch Killing Sabrina Ventures. And we want to talk about it.
I'm not sure I watched that.
Yeah. That's a spin-off.
This is a spoiler-filled podcast filled with all the spoilers of all of season 1 of Sabrina Killing. So be warned, it's a killing podcast if you haven't seen it. What are your general thoughts and overall feelings? What did you like about the show?
Why don't you start, Clara?
Very bingeable, at least for me. I felt I had no choice but to binge.
You were cursed.
Yes, definitely. I definitely didn't just choose to spend 8 hours watching it straight through, pretty much.
And then she watched the other two the next day.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I'm struggling a little bit with my overall thoughts. I mean,
I agree.
Clearly I really liked it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Clearly.
I really liked it. Because I decided to commit to a witchy wardrobe, and now I'm living my life Sabrina style. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I would say in the first half I was kind of hate watching it, and then somewhere in there I was like, I like this. When did this happen?
Yeah, you were definitely more negative about it at the beginning, and then the next day you're like, I finished it. And I'm like, I thought we were watching it together.
I also binged this show.
Nice.
So I never disliked it, but I had some troubles with it more in the beginning, and then I grew to really like it by the end. I think it definitely got better as the episodes went on, and I personally, even though, we'll get to some issues that I have with the show, because I definitely think it has room to grow, I really love the show. It filled the Buffy gap in my heart. And if you haven't seen my Buffy mashup video, we'll link it at the end of this.
Really.
But yeah, it's what I've been missing, and it's one of those things where I'm like, do we need a Buffy reboot when we have this? I don't really think so.
You can have both.
You can, but you need both. I think the real reason to me that it worked is that Kiernan Shipka is fantastic.
Yeah.
She just grounds, I have some issues with some of the characters in the show. I still love the show because she is so good.
Yeah.
And she has been since she was so little.
Yeah, Mad Men, I was like, this is the child acting of the future.
Yeah, exactly. Now look at us.
And now look at us.
Right.
Now, Netflix really knows how to cast young actors. I mean, what can we say?
Yeah. And I'll say that, she already, I already think I like her more than I liked Buffy. And that's, as far as the central character goes.
I think initially, well, okay. So I'll say this. I think that it was a lot harder for me getting on board with Buffy. Not that I want to stay on this subject too long, but it was a lot harder for me getting on board with wanting to follow Buffy and care about her based on her personality and she's a kind of airhead who's learning to become a thing. Sabrina was never an airhead.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a lot more. She's bookish and smart and ambitious and kind, and it's just cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's
I want to hang out with her.
The thing that I think is actually really interesting about it is that, especially for a female-centered show, is it seems like her main arc is about arrogance, which is very interesting and different. It's not like, oh, I'm not empowered, or oh, I, am wishy-washy, whatever, emotional, whatever. She is completely in control to the point where she thinks more of herself than she is. And that's her fatal flaw. Yeah. So I think that is very rare.
Especially, I think, because I can think of there are certain arcs in Buffy where that's the case as well, especially near the end, right?
Yeah.
But sorry, spoiler. Nah,
that's not a spoiler.
It's a theme. But it's really cool to see this from the beginning of a young character's arc.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool too.
Yeah.
And especially a young woman's arc.
Yeah. So generally, I mean, it was fantastic coming out around Halloween, the spookiness. It was nice that it was on Netflix, so I didn't feel like anything was held back, really, but as far as content goes. It didn't go crazy horrific or anything, but at least...
They towed a nice line of being... Not, I wouldn't necessarily call it family friendly, but or at all family
middle school friendly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like I could still see like, you know, preteens, teenagers, and even like some people watching it. Depending on your relationship with your parents, you could still watch it with your parents and like have a fun time.
Yeah.
The only people I know actually who have said that they had a problem with it are adults who are like, but I just can't watch anything that's horror. Oh boy.
There's like no horror.
There's like no horror. Nor.
There's like, honestly, I wouldn't, aside from maybe the premiere, I wouldn't say it is horror. I would say it's supernatural.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like there are but like there's maybe there was like 2 jump scares, but like it's not a horror show.
No, I didn't find it. I didn't find it scary at all.
Yeah, it's a supernatural
just nice,
show.
Spooky.
It wasn't even really unsettling. Like that was the word I tend to use with horror stuff. And I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
No, and I don't think that's what it was going for.
Yeah.
I think it was going for dark, but dark and horror are 2 different things.
Right.
All right. So one of the first things that I liked that I think will be a little debatable is the cinematography. And I know when I said that to Clara, she balked.
I said, oh,
dear Lord.
Dear Satan.
That's my favorite thing that they did in the show.
So good.
The Satanism was so fun.
To the point where Satanists are suing them.
Yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah. They apparently stole the main statue that's in the middle of the school is like exactly a statue that actually exists and has a copyright on it.
It looks a lot like tarot, the tarot card of the devil. Like it's a lot. Anyway,
I thought it was just like a common piece of art, but I guess that one specifically.
I mean, like holding a caduceus and stuff. I mean, they clearly did a lot of Googling.
They did their research, I think.
Just not enough to go against copyright law. You see, you do your research and then you change it enough that you can't get sued.
He has one more beard hair than... But you were saying what way do you go? Oh.
Yeah. Let's go back to cinematography. We'll get to the Satanism.
Why did they do that, Dan?
So, you're talking specifically about
the
like
unfocused,
the blur cam.
Yeah. Why did they do that?
You're not alone in disliking that. I
just want to hear it.
Why they did it.
As I was watching it, I thought Dan will have opinions about this, and I wanna hear them.
Well, okay. So I can certainly understand why people wouldn't like that. It reminds me a lot of how people really didn't like the first Hunger Games movie. Wow, you got there.
Yeah. Oh, I was really there. I was like, Dan will have opinions, and he'll talk about Hunger Games. I know you.
I personally loved the shaky cam in the first Hunger Games movie, and I know a lot of people hated it, partially because people dislike shaky cam, partially because people feel sick from shaky cam. I can also understand people feeling sick from this, potentially, too.
So as someone who did get actually viscerally nauseous from the first Hunger Games, I did not get that from...
Yeah. Well, I think it's a different kind of person who might feel sick from this. It's like the kind of person who might get like a headache or something.
A different character.
Yeah, but I mean to say that I would never have connected the 2 things. Mm-hmm. Because also to me, it was like, they're trying to go for a specific, like, they're trying to make the audience understand kind of more what's going on by using that blurred focus of like, now witchy stuff is happening. Like it's always tied to like something.
It's almost always in the forest.
It's almost always in the forest, which is already tied to her, like, you know, the experiences and the covens and everything. But also it's like, all right, she was going from the mortal world into her witch world, and now you know that you like expect something to, so it kind of sets a tone.
Okay, I like that. I didn't pick up on that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, they didn't just do it willy-nilly.
I figured they weren't.
Yeah.
And I also, I mean, this might be one of the issues with binging is like either you can pick up on that more easily or less easily because there's so much coming at you at once.
Yeah. The whole point is that it's supposed to be ethereal. It's supposed to be like space and time bending, because it also, I'm pretty sure the first time it happens is the weird sisters just like appear around her.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be like because the other thing I'm interested in watching, I'm pretty sure that when she's walking through the forest with Harvey, it isn't happening.
It isn't. So that's, for me, what made it set the tone of mortal versus witch.
Yeah. That's my bad for not picking it up.
I mean,
but
I don't think
even with you not picking it up, you can you and many people can still say, I don't like seeing that. Like, there's one thing where I'm like, it's a clear stylistic choice. I appreciate a stylistic choice because so few people in mainstream television, especially, try anything stylistic. And unfortunately, people's, like, I was looking at comments on YouTube videos today, and like a lot of people, that was the main thing they were bringing up. And so I'm like, yeah, people get upset about anything that's different or irregular, and then people don't try stuff. But I can also understand that's like, oh, you can see it, you can be like, I know why they did that, and then go, it's not enjoyable to look at.
Right.
And I can certainly understand that. But I don't know, broader scale, I like the look of the show.
Right.
I like that they play with colors really well. The sequence where she eats the apple and then it gets all orange and fiery, so well done. I love the set design. You brought that up when when they went to the Witch Academy for the first time. I think that looks great. I think the house looks awesome. Great.
Yeah. This is so perfect. Yeah. Homey and scary at the same or not scary, but witchy.
Yeah.
Witchy, it's just a world where I'm like, I want to live in this creepy
I want that house so bad. That's my dream house.
Maybe we should all just move into that house.
Can we?
It's allegedly in Massachusetts, I believe.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, if it's a few towns over from Salem, figure it out.
I definitely think, I will say, so there are a few things about like the world, the look and the feel of the world that I do have some issues with. I feel like Baxter High is kind of bland, but that might be because they want such a contrast between that and the Witch Academy.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I actually thought that Baxter High was suspiciously witchy.
Oh, really?
Well, remember,
like it was decorated for Halloween.
Yeah,
like crazy, and I like it.
Yeah.
But I actually stylistically might have preferred it not being that way, so there could have been more.
If you recall, in the first episode, they say, "Welcome to Greendale, the town where every day feels like Halloween."
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
well, also, so the pilot is called like October Country or something.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, they did not do.
This is also it's so long ago.
They did not do a good job of. I don't feel like they did so it's weird because I have mixed opinions on this where I'm like, I like a lot of the set design, but I also feel like they didn't do a great job of building the town and making me feel like it was a place where it was Halloween year round. Like, it felt like each set was very disconnected. I didn't feel like I saw, like, the town. And I also don't think they showed us enough townspeople.
Yeah. They were just like, it feels like Halloween. Because we're constantly watching and talking about horror movies. Yeah. And there's, like, a weirdo weatherman who's referring to himself as Dr. Cerberus and has a creepy bookshop that, like, the same 5 people go to.
Well, that's the thing and it's, like, the fact that they all like scary movies, I'm like, well, this is, like, a group of friends that like scary movies.
Exactly. Right. It doesn't mean the entire town's, like, obsessed with it.
Right. It's weird, because, they should have done a little bit more research on, like, what Salem is like.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They could have gone to more shops. They could have seen people giving tours about stuff.
The whole point is this place wants to distance itself from that. But
so then it's not how...
Yeah, exactly. It's one or the other, guys. The other thing is about, like, how I wish there were more, like, characters and villagers and stuff sprinkled throughout. That's the one thing where I do feel like it might have been nice to have more episodes in the season. Generally, I think the season, we'll get into it in more detail later, I thought was very well laid out and they did a really great job with it. But I think that's one of those things where if they had... more filler episodes.
I was about to say that. I was like, if they had more Monster of the Week episodes,
they
just
needed just one or two.
Just like Daddy Bat was great.
Introduce randoms, more people in the town that pop in and out, where so it doesn't just feel like the only people in the school are these 5 kids, and then random jocks.
I wish instead of Monster of the Week that affected the school. Yeah. I wish, like, the harrowing episode was good. Yeah. Right? But I wish, like, maybe we didn't need that, because...
We needed to introduce the school in more detail.
Yeah, or, like...
So it's interesting, because I said the same 5 kids, meaning Baxter High.
I was thinking
Baxter High. But that's also very true of Witch Academy, where it seems like they're literally, these are the 5 kids at the Witch Academy.
Yeah.
There should have been more. We only saw her in a class once at the Witch Academy. And that was a problem for me.
Twice, chorus.
Okay, fine.
Chorus and the time that she was in... Conjuring or whatever.
She was never. We never saw. Demonology. Yeah. Like we never actually got to see her in the Conjuring class because reasons.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Did she even get into it?
I don't even know. She ended up bringing that forward.
How would she have done it?
Look, I solved the puzzle.
And it broke.
Yeah.
And then released the demon.
And
here you go.
Well, also, there was a whole thing where they were like, what's the bad guy's name? The head of the school.
Father?
Faustus or something.
Yeah.
I
kept wanting to say Faustus.
He was like, apparently he had been trying to open it for years or something.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay.
And he never thought to like look through the guy's notebooks.
Yeah, and then at the breakfast table, the aunts were like, "Oh, it's because you're half human." But like, how? What is that? How?
Literally because you knew your mother's name and noticed very obvious letters and very obvious page folds.
Well, no, but it wasn't the whole thing that they saw her eyes closed.
Yeah, so she like closed.
He was. I think the idea is that she had the emotional state of mind.
Is it that she could love because Luke mentions?
I honestly, I think it's something like
Luke?
Nick.
Nick.
Yeah, we're so good fans, guys. I think it's supposed to be that like she has the humanity and the emotional. Like he would look at it clinically, and she was like, "Oh, he did something artistic.
It's about his love.
What does this signify?" Blah blah blah. I think
did her dad love her mom? I'm really worried about that.
I think that love is complicated and you have different ways of showing it.
Yeah.
Good.
Especially when it's romantic love versus love for a child. Mm-hmm. Definitely not speaking on this from familial experience.
So monster design. I really liked monster design. I think there were a couple things that were a little wacky, but I thought that the pilot had a phenomenal job with this creepy skeleton guy in the maze. I think that
so good at that.
You brought up of like, if this is what Netflix can do, why does Pennywise in the It movie look the way he does?
Well, not even just all of the extra
Well, I mean,
creatures,
he's still those creatures.
Yeah. I mean, all the extra things in it that looked really fakey. I thought that looked awesome. I think all the devil stuff looks fantastic. What's her name? The dream person.
Batty Bat.
She was one of the most Buffy-ish looking creatures.
Right. Still looked really good.
Yeah.
I liked that,
but I thought she looked cool.
And it felt familiar to me that she looked like a Buffy monster.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I wonder how I'd feel about that if I wasn't a Buffy fan. You know what I mean? Like, I might be more like, oh, that's cheesy. But like,
I wonder how you'd feel about this show if you were a Buffy fan.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, yeah. But the one monster that I think went maybe a little too far were the judges.
Yeah, the judges, I think I rolled my eyes at them a few times.
To me, episode 3, which is the one where she's on trial, was probably my least favorite of the bunch. Because, and we're going to talk more about the tonal shifts and stuff, but it was the first one that just felt straight up silly to me. And the show certainly like purposely has its cheesy and silly moments, but the first 2 episodes are pretty serious. And so when they then went to this like really goofy thing with these goofy judges, I had a bit of whiplash.
That, and also like, and now there's something on the clock because her aunts are aging and then it's catching up with them and and
then they had this the lawyer guy was a little too much for me.
Yeah, the lawyer guy was just over the top
and weird. Yeah. Although even though it led to the whole like, my mother and father weren't perfect. I'm like, I feel like there was a better way to introduce that. Yeah. And maybe not in episode 3 either.
Yeah. There were certain things where I just felt like things felt a little bit rushed.
But even then, you know what? When you're binging it,
you don't
really notice it because it's just 40 minutes out of the whole thing.
All right, let's get into some more specifics about specific characters. Okay. We kind of talked about Sabrina. I don't know if you have anything else you want to pop in about her.
Can I say, one of my favorite things about Sabrina was that she was so, like, still a kid.
Yeah.
That as I was watching it, as someone who's older, I was just like, oh my god, defend her. Like, oh my god, make sure she's okay. Like, my, like, parental instincts were kicking in for her, which I don't get with Buffy because, like, or I mean, maybe I would if I rewatched it more now, but, like, I don't know. There's something so it's this like Netflix fantastic child actor casting thing.
Yeah.
It's the same with Stranger Things. I watch these kids. I'm just like,
Yeah.
They actually feel like they're in real danger.
Yeah.
And it's done really well.
So it's interesting that you feel that way because until like episode 7 or so what it was when she got to the point when she was going to resurrect the dead and everything, I like stopped and thought, and I was like, man, things have actually gone very well for her. And I was like,
there's a reason she feels cocky.
Yeah. And I was just like, is she a Mary Sue? And the ending, the last like 3 or 4 episodes of the show pretty definitively make me say, no, she isn't. But I feel like there is a bit of that in the beginning, where it's like everything she's always right. The patriarchy or the evil people are always wrong. She proves her adults always are wrong, and she always is successful. And now again, I do think that was partially by design so that they could flip it on her at the end.
Right.
But I do. There was a little bit of me thinking that. I will say against my argument is that literally in the pilot she messes with Harvey's mind, which is
So they towed the line of Sabrina being like her being likable, but still capable, but also not from the beginning being like, and she will always make the right ethical choices.
She does those boys. She freaks those boys. She's bad about that.
And there's some stuff in there where you're just like, be mean to the mean people. But then it gets out of hand quickly for her too. And you're like, why did you trust them? Like, that was stupid of you. So she's already flawed, even though, and then they uptick it again of like, look, all these things are working out. Look at how capable you are. But then the entire last third is, you really messed this up. And your arrogance is in your own way, and now you're paying the price with your relationship with your parental figures, your cousins and your friends.
I think that they did a really good job of sort of balancing her clearly having a dark side, but also feeling very pure and innocent. And, like, despite that, like, you almost forget about the dark things she's doing.
It reminds me of 11.
Yeah.
And I felt like protective in a very similar way, where it's like, she's a child, so she's making these bad mistakes. Someone please guide her in a good way rather than a bad way.
The fact of watching her slit another girl's throat, even though she had a plan, I was just like,
don't do it.
Don't do it. You're good. You're good. And then and it's like, well, obviously you weren't going to let her stay dead.
Yeah.
But still, that's like a line that you crossed with a person, which I, from the beginning, never actually thought that she would be capable of crossing.
Yeah. Right. Well, I was going to say this for later, but as far as the ending, they did such a good job of making me so against her writing her name in the book that, like, I still feel like anxiety about the fact that she wrote her name. I'm like, no, you why? No,
you weren't gonna.
You can't. How are you gonna get out of it? How is she gonna get out of this?
The book of the beast. Slit your hair like it's yours.
Also, as a side note, I'm really excited about next season, but you gotta get rid of the wig. You can't have her.
I was waiting for you to.
You can't have her with that white hair
with
the entire next season.
Wig,
I understand that it's like comic book accurate or whatever. I don't care. Let her have her normal hair, please. Like, she can have that for like the first 2 episodes when she's like particularly evil or something. Right. But I
wanted to say engorged with power, but that's
like engorged with Nick's power. Anyway.
Or Prudence's.
Oh, Prudence's power. There's a lot of Prudence Buffy fans. Buffy, I meant Sabrina.
Well, on the Buffy, I think on the Buffy subreddit where I posted your video, people were just like, man, this means that Prudence is her Spike. And everyone's just like, yeah. Buffy spoiler? It's a 20-something-year-old show.
Oh, that's so much better than any other. Oh, that's so good.
So, let's talk about Prudence. I think she was surprisingly fantastic.
She chewed the scenery perfectly. Like, she could be... You might be seeing her and being like, this is over the top, but it's like the right kind of over the top.
Yeah. She is...
So good. Tonally, she was so perfect.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting is Olga... whenever I make her watch these high school-y shows, she hates the mean girl characters.
I really do. They make it intolerable for me to watch.
She really couldn't handle Cordelia and Buffy. No. She barely was managing to deal with her and Angel.
We stopped watching Angel for
I'm gonna get you back to
someday.
But I feel like from the get-go, I think the fact that Prudence was never at Baxter High as far as like just a normal teenager, and she was like the mean witch, really helped. Because she wasn't just like a mean girl, she was like an evil girl.
Right.
But then there was more layers added to it.
And she agrees to work with Sabrina really fast in order to try to like be mean to the mean people. And that's the best kind of bad character, right? The best sort of evil is the one who's doing bad in the name of good. So like that's already makes her so much more interesting than like, I'm gonna be petty because and also that said, so the fact that like Sabrina, even after being like cursed by them, reached back out to them. Yes, good for Sabrina.
I was just like, this is interesting. Like, oh yeah, they hate her, but blah, blah, blah. And then again, having it to the line of like, and now they're trying to kill her. But then she served her just desserts very quickly. And then, again, kind of more in line with things that make me roll my eyes a little bit, of the episode where she does go, Sabrina's her handmaiden, and she goes to Baxter High. I'm like, okay, but at least the discussion here is in the context of belief. And Sabrina's kind of in the wrong here, in my opinion, because it's like, well, you don't have any faith. And like, who are you to say what that is?
The episode doesn't agree with you because
right, it doesn't.
I keep saying Buffy.
I know.
Because Sabrina is so proven right.
She is, but at the same time, it's one of those things where again, she's proven right at the hands of another person interfering, but at the same time,
but you know what? But you know what? She does this, and she's kind of not proven right because the other woman, killed herself. And so Sabrina, instead of this being this sort of thing of like, everyone is benefiting, it's like, no one is really benefiting here. This is all really creepy, and I've undermined a system, but the thing still happens. It's one of these, like, you can't undo the
but
future,
she's proven right as far as it's being barbaric and stupid. Like, I feel like it would be hard to make the argument that this show is in any way pro-religion. And obviously they're using Satanism in this heightened way. So I'm not even talking about how they depict Satanism.
Right.
I'm talking about how
we don't really understand.
Yeah. I'm talking about how they use Satanism to poke holes and whatever at both the patriarchy but also at regular religion.
Well, I'll say this. In general, I think that they're bringing up like religion at its core in many religions anyway. At least these monotheistic ones. A lot of them are very patriarchal. And this is also a show where it's like, bam, girl power. Like, that's really what the show is. So it's this thing of also like, her dad was a good example of going against the patriarchy because he was like, no, I think the Feast of Feasts is barbaric, and who are we to say this? And then we have another man who's like kind of drunk on power being like, no, we must go back to the old ways of the more conservative readings. And so, if anything,
but
I think
it's also
the show,
the woman that is ultimately
right. But the women ultimately choose to do it. But at the same,
no, I'm saying the woman's the one who ultimately actually screws over Prudence.
Right. But at the same time, it's also because she's afraid she's going to lose her husband and all this other stuff of like that. So it's just one of these things where the show is arguably more than faith being a problem, is being like, faith in the hands of the irresponsible, power-drunk men.
Here's the thing. And to a certain degree, I think sometimes they mix their metaphors a little too much. Because in some way, so that episode specifically, which I actually really do like that episode, I would say it's one of my favorites. The fact that they have it, they bring up the whole like pedophilia of priests, right? And all that stuff. But because the show is so focused on patriarchy and misogyny and stuff, there's no, like, when you're talking about that, you should probably at least be including young boys, right? And so, like, the fact that like, was the topic, but it was just women as a potential victim, that to me is, like, you're kind of, again, because you're mixing the two ideas, you're losing part of one of them.
Right.
I think that's definitely a fair critique of that.
Because and in general, I don't think that they're not showing the fact that patriarchy can be bad for men too. Which, I mean, I'm not saying that's like the most important thing to show.
Right, but it's true.
But it's part of it, yeah.
Toxic masculinity at the end of the day hurts everybody.
Yeah. I will say they're getting at that with Harvey.
Yeah.
I mean, his father is toxic masculinity kind of encapsulated.
Yeah.
And his brother is trying to look out for him, and he is trying to break from this history that's holding him back in some ways. And Sabrina's trying to help him, but isn't entirely sure how to go about that.
Yeah.
What
do you think of Harvey in general?
That's super interesting.
So I grew to like him quite a bit by the end. I think that when it started, I remember I was talking to you, Olga, about how it's so funny because this is one of those examples where like the female is the lead, so the usual criticisms against the girlfriend characters are not put on Harvey. It's just like he's kind of just there to be loved and be pretty. And I think that they throughout the season did more than that with him, and I think the actor brought more to the character than the writing did.
I agree. I'm like, I thought he did a good job with it. Again, you have this sympathy for him based on the household that he's in. I like the family that they set up for him. I don't know. I just felt like his character made sense. He did a good job with it. And it just followed a path with Sabrina where he wasn't blindly like, I love it. Like, I like the fact that their relationship was in danger at the end.
I think in the second season I will really like him. I think this first season they were figuring out, or they had already figured out, and they were like building to it so that it would matter more later on.
Well, the thing is, I think that even though he was kind of simple, the actor made it so he was a believable human being, so he didn't just feel like a prop.
You know what I really liked him was when he was showing fear, and that was causing him an incredible amount of distress. That was awesome to see, and I really liked his character in those moments.
When he was seeing the demon that was inside Uncle Jesse. Is that
or also back when they were back in the mine, and he had a sort of PTSD moment that you aren't sure whether it was a real thing or not.
So that's the thing that I'll be interested to see in season 2, because his season 1 arc is going from this non-traditional masculinity to more traditional. He's like, I have to be the man now. I have to be strong and brave.
Right.
I have to take care of my dad now, too.
So what'll be so interesting to see is, can he figure out, will they deal with the idea of a man being strong without engaging in toxic masculinity?
Well,
that'll be really cool.
I think the way they're going to have to encapsulate that, and what I think they set up is with him being descended from a family of witch hunters. He will be facing he has to face a fork in the road where he's either going to be like, witches have caused me personal harm. Even it's like, I feel sympathy for Sabrina, but none of this would have happened had they not curse me and my brother.
And he doesn't need to kill Sabrina in order to...
or at the very least, invade the cat. So I think he'll be forced with a choice of fulfilling his witch hunter destiny or standing against it and with the witches in the coven. So literally choosing the patriarchal thing or choosing the...
Evil? I guess I worry about what the witches
but the thing is, by the time that I think that he would actually come to fruition with choosing Sabrina, she's going to be out of her... It'll either be helping her get out from under Satan's, the Dark Lord's grasp, or just them fully standing against it. So the point is that I think that he's going to be choosing tradition and patriarchy and toxic masculinity versus a future and hope and being free from these burdens and pursuing myself.
But I do, what you just pointed out though is this another example of mixing the metaphors where it's the women, the witches are women working together and being strong, but they also represent evil. So it's
so my question is, so witchcraft is such a cool concept throughout history. Obviously, it's usually powerful women. Not that there haven't been male witches, but
warlocks.
and like men were killed in Salem too, whatever.
Whatever.
I don't mean whatever, but like
fuck the man.
No, but obvious symbol for women having power.
Yeah.
But then they're also representing witchcraft is evil so long as it comes from Satan, which is fine.
Yeah.
But then you get into, okay, so then if your power is coming from yourself, it's okay. But if it's coming from a deity, it's bad. And then you fall into the, like, all religion is bad thing. Or you fall into the, I don't, it gets,
also,
okay, there's a difference between, they can toe a line where they're not saying religion is bad. They can be saying humanism is good. You don't have to, that's not the one or the other. It can be like, we're promoting humanism. We're promoting your own inner strength and the strength you derive from those around you, as opposed to needing to rely on religion without saying religion is evil or what. Like,
but okay, so like if they hadn't made, this ends up with some crazy sentences.
Okay.
If they hadn't made Satan evil.
Yes.
If they had made him actually a like God foil, and he wasn't a character who was present, who was leading her towards evil, then they could have done all sorts of things of like, well, but like, look, like people can misinterpret religion. People can use religion for their own ends. That doesn't mean that it's always bad.
I would argue that they have not definitively said that Satan is evil on this show. I don't think we've seen enough of him. We've seen
he's trying to take her free will away.
Yeah.
So for what end though? She's done bad things too. We don't really know what his plans are. So like think about this.
Lilith is like killing people left and right.
So Lilith is doing I think we definitively know that Lilith is evil. I don't know that we know that Satan is, because we haven't really seen his point of view. We've seen everything.
We haven't seen Satan's point of view.
We haven't heard it yet.
We've seen everything through her eyes, and she's
2018.
clearly.
We need to listen to everyone. How Satan hasn't been on the show and talked yet.
Because
grabbing her hand. Anyway, yes, sorry.
So for one thing, right? So you see the opening vision, and it's super dark and fucked up, or whatever. Ultimately, that is him showing her how he can save the town.
In exchange, right?
So,
in exchange for her free will and her soul.
He needs her to do something, which involves the apocalypse. But if he believes the apocalypse is for the best,
but
again, she's used people and done bad things.
Sorry, remind me. How did the 13 witches come to invade the town again?
Yeah, but he didn't do that. Lilith did that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, so the question is Lilith actually taking orders from Satan or not?
Well, and then how much is she making? Is she freeballing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like, one would hope that if she was freeballing too much and she had signed away her soul and free will, he could say,
I don't think Lilith has signed away
I don't
her
think
soul,
she signed away her free will.
demon.
Her whole thing is that she's like, I want to be his queen. I want to be his, like, more than just his, like, right hand. I want to be at, like, with his hand.
So she says that she is the first witch.
No,
right?
she's a demon.
No, she's a demon.
No.
I know she's the mother of demons.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think she's a witch at all.
I think she's pretending, because she needs a cover story.
Like, for
she
sure.
can't be like, I'm Lilith.
Just a demon, it's fine. Okay,
don't
so
vanquish me.
If we operate under the assumption that she's a demon, I'm much, much more okay with this than what I was.
Well, the thing is, okay, I mean, we're getting into things that I didn't necessarily mean to get into this soon, but this is just kind of how it happens. We were supposed to be talking about characters,
right?
But this leads to the bigger discussion of where I do think there's issues with just the general mythology, right? When you have these people who worship Satan and they're like, oh my God, there's a demon. I'm like, don't you like demons? Or like, they're like, he crawled out of hell. I'm like, don't you like hell? Like, there's so many.
It is
there's numerous lines where they're like, oh, this would be the worst thing ever. I'm like, don't you want the worst thing ever? Like,
Also, it's just like, oh, you have, like, Zelda is so getting a little bit back to character.
Yeah.
Like, Zelda is so conservative in her religious beliefs, and she's like, very difficult to like for most of the season.
I think they did a great job with her, actually.
They did, but at the same time, she is difficult. You're just, like, waiting for her to be like, be more actually like do nice things, not just be
I didn't think it took that long for that to happen, to be honest. I think by episode 5, when they had the dream sequence, I was on board as well.
No. She definitely, like, I think that is what do you call it? The save the cat a little bit?
Yeah, save the cat moment.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's just like, and then there's Hilda, who's like got a looser interpretation of their religion and is so much more like nice. And you're just like, see, you can't be super into this religion if you want to be nice. Like, question mark?
Well, that's the thing is, I think that they, unfortunately, again, there was some mixing and matching where things just didn't really make sense. Because, like, I really liked Faustus. I think that's his name.
Yes.
Someone should check his name.
You have your phone.
Yeah. I really liked his opening speech where he's like, it's about free will, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, good. You have a mythology and an idea behind this religion.
Right.
And then he immediately...
Now,
pulls the rug out from under her.
If they hadn't changed that... This would have been really great, and I wouldn't have had any problems.
Yeah.
Because it could have been fallen angel.
Yeah.
And so we're supporting him because it's about free will, and that's very important. And that's, the, like, very likable Paradise Lost Lucifer.
Well, that's the thing is, I think that is still what the religion is supposed to be, right? And then he as again, they talk about this, that, like, the religion is one thing, but he's a man, he's corruptible. Even though that's what the religious text says and all that stuff, and he spouts it as though it's true, he doesn't always follow through on that. And then again, we haven't seen Satan's point of view. So until that, maybe he is about free will. He just isn't about specifically Sabrina's free will.
I can't believe we live in this world.
Because she needs to be...
Do we live in this world?
We don't live in this world. That's the point. But then at the same time, he's just like, oh good, my stronger son ate my weaker son, and I want only sons.
Again,
and blah, blah, blah.
That's a human. That's not the religion. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know. I'm getting a little lost in the weeds here.
That's the thing is, to a certain degree, it kind of reminds me of, like, Doctor Who, where it's like, just don't think about the time travel stuff and just enjoy the show, right? Like, none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
But Sabrina's big journey, right, that we are so concerned about is whether or not she signed over her free will to this being.
Yeah.
Right.
And if the being is, like, more or less okay, I am more or less concerned about her decision.
I think we should be concerned.
But look at, here's the thing is, right now, they want you to be very concerned. But maybe that will be the turn, is that you realize that here's the thing, it's never gonna be a turn where he is a great guy. but there might be a turn where he's more a gray area character.
Where he's actually not as evil as Lilith is, and Lilith is actually...
My assumption is that he's going to be an ends justify the means kind of thing.
And then, but then you have this thing of, like, patriarchy is bad, but this woman...
But the man is the one who knows what's going on in the world.
Right, and the woman is the one who you need to defeat.
Who's a power-hungry usurper.
God.
Of the man who's really in charge and being good.
Yeah,
like, that's a bad trope.
Okay, but she's not the only woman on the show.
She's not. But
it's still a trope that's like, can we not do this on the trope that's smashed the patriarchy?
Alright, I'm going to reel us back in a little bit.
No more Satan.
We'll see.
I'm going to reel us back in.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to say, as far as, the last thing I want to talk about as far as mythology goes, is I also think that they need to give me a little bit more as far as the specifics of the magic.
Yeah.
Because when we have scenes where the two girls are fist fighting, I'm like, why are you not, like, shooting lightning out of your hand? Why aren't you levitating? Like, I don't understand what you're capable of. And so, like, I personally, like, I'm okay with, like, the sort of Harry Potter-ish thing where it's like, oh, we can come up with a spell to solve this problem or whatever, right? Like, I don't need it to have, like, complete complex rules where they explain that this is how this works or whatever. But, like, I need something to be like, what are your base level capabilities? Do you need an herb for every single thing you do? Do you need because most of the things she does, she has some sort of item or something, right?
Yeah.
Until the end where she's, like, super powerful and he just makes people turn on fire. But I just don't understand why, like we have Zelda do the thing during the funeral where she just stops the guy with her hand, right? Well, can Sabrina do that?
I think, certain things I definitely think are relative to, like, your wisdom and your age and your skill, and you learn these skills and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you're right. They need to flesh out what people are actually capable of a little bit
We need to
better.
see the school a little bit. We need to
Yeah.
have an episode where we really see a class beyond a history lesson, I think.
Yeah.
And
Well, the other thing is that, like even in the Baddie Bad episode, right? It's like, you have a bunch of seasoned witches here. Can they, like, levitate books and things that, like, they're basically just running away from it until she does her spell. But I'm like, well...
And then they seal it in the house. And
Yeah, I know that right at the beginning she seals it in the urn or whatever,
right.
but like, but they did that to stop it. They didn't like try to fight it first.
Right. Well,
like,
partially I'm like, well, maybe there's no good in fighting. I don't. Yeah, no. I mean, the biggest thing that I think they really show is the astral projection.
Yeah.
Of, like, I think that was an easy way for them to be like, we're fleshing out powers and skills, but also, like, it's convenient.
But also, so that's an example of them doing it well, because they're putting limits on it.
Right.
We can't do this whatever we want. There are these creatures or whatever that will attack you.
Yeah.
And we're setting up this gun that will eventually go off when someone stays in there too long.
Right, yeah.
So...
Someone's gonna screw that up in season 2.
Yeah.
They have to.
So, like, again, I don't need it to make, like, total...
The Ambrose. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm already worried.
Ambrose.
I don't need it to make complete sense, but it needs to make more sense than it does.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Ambrose.
I love
so
him.
much.
Yes.
Die for him.
He's really good.
His dream sequence.
Yeah.
I loved him from the moment I laid eyes on him.
The only thing that gives me pause about him isn't really about him as, like, a character or an actor. It's just, like, how are you related to Sabrina?
Yeah, that is confusing.
Who are you? Are you really a Spellman at the end of the day?
Well, I like that it's it's cousinship.
Yeah.
What's the word for that? Whatever. He is a cousin.
Like, they're shipping them?
No. Like, the relationship is cousinness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just confused by, like, Hilda's British, and he's British. Zelda's not British.
Yeah, the question
But
is...
he's not Hilda's son.
And he's also not Edward, or is his name Edward?
Edward.
Yeah. Oh,
He's not,
her
also
dad,
not Edward's son.
So they have another.
So
I
is
think
that...
I think he's probably a third cousin.
I just want it to be a little. I think that shouldn't be a mystery for season 2.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that makes me feel like.
Speaking of mysteries that I don't think should have been saved for season 2. Luke slash who's killing...
He killed the guy,
Yeah, I mean, it seemed really obvious that he killed the guy.
I don't think he killed the guy. I think it was a red hair.
Well, if it was, then
Then they should have fleshed out his character more.
Yeah, because the thing... So again, jumping all over my outline here, but one of the sections I had was unearned moments, and I think that Luke telling him he loved him in the finale, completely unearned moment.
Well, the whole thing is, it's like, and now Hilda cast a love spell, and I'm like, all right, I'm okay with that being, like...
Yeah, but I felt like you were supposed to, like,
2,
actually be shipping that moment of him telling him he loved him.
Yeah, you're right.
It was just kind of clumsy.
But
like,
they're so hot together.
I mean, they are hot. I'm fine with that. But so I want to talk about... We're still talking about characters. But I want to combine that with sort of the activism of the show, the sort of social justice thing that they were going for. And the thing is, I appreciate what they were trying to do, but I feel like the two best friend characters feel kind of like tokenism. I feel like they are like almost sort of signaling the wokeness of the show for the sake of doing it and not really doing much with those characters. I felt like they could have been so much more than they were, is my general feeling.
Even though they're kind of inextricably tied together as, like, the friends of Sabrina and what they're each struggling with and going for, I would kind of like to tackle them one at a time. And let's start with Susie, because I think that Susie's actually the more effective of the two. Because she actually, in my opinion, has some, like, she has some actual, I feel like, character growth that you get on board with by the end of the season. And I can still see, I think with her, there's less signaling. I think there is more action, struggle, and agency. But we can discuss that as well.
So my issue... it's not my issue with Susie. My worry about Susie as a character is that it really seems like the only thing she is ever thinking about, talking about, or doing has to do with her gender. identity and expression.
Just to be clear, because I was a little confused about this. So he is born female and dressing like a male.
Tomboyish.
But one would assume that maybe her arc would be eventually transitioning.
Well, so again, slightly connecting it, of Roz's grandmother is just like, oh, this fine gent, like this lad, and she's like, Susie's a girl. She's like, no, it's fine. Like, so clearly I'll just say that I know that the actor that plays Susie is non-binary, so I could see that maybe just like them taking that into the character.
Yeah.
But she's biologically female. The bullies make fun of her for being a lesbian and are like, oh, you must be a boy. And then when she really comes into contact with that demon who's like calling, saying that she's cursed, she tries to incorporate more typical feminine details by wearing, like, trying to reject that
and when she hears about the history of her family being, like, totally against...
her uncle being like, he wore a dress. What's wrong with him? He should go to a mental institution for that. Like, all of that. Like, clearly it's something where she's like, I don't want that fate for myself. I'm going to reject it. And it's her also, like, finding someone in her family history who... With, Dorothea? Yeah. With, like, and talking to her and being, like, more accepting of, again, Roz's grandmother and, like, her own agency and things like that. And I'm kind of hopeful that maybe with Dorothea's help, yes, maybe she'll be able to, like, fully take on this identity in season 2, but they'll be able to walk away from it being the entire character.
Right. Like, maybe, sorry. So I guess what I would say is, like, Susie, like, there's room for growth with Susie, and they aren't doing everything they can to make her a really great character. Whereas Roz, like, I found her arc interesting at the beginning, but then it just became so, like, not... how can they fix this?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay, I don't want to get into Roz for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Susie, I will admit, I was confused for the first few episodes. I thought that Susie was supposed to be a male that had fully transitioned into female.
Already going into the show.
I thought that's what they were starting with. Specifically because they were talking about so much about women supporting women. I thought that she was choosing her pronouns as being female. Yeah. And because I thought they were like, oh, we're intersectional feminism. We're accepting her as a woman because that's what she wants to be. So in fact, the fact that she is female, but seems to identify more as with masculine traits, I actually find that a little odd that they're like, oh, you're one of the women. Like, does she want to be one of, like, it's a little confusing.
You're right. I was also a little confused by it, especially, but at the same time, I'm just like, right, but what they're supporting is, like, different expressions of femininity or not. But you're absolutely right that it feels like they kind of seemed like they were going in one direction and then backed off of it for the sake of her development of, like, here, let her have a historical connection to the witches thanks to this ancestor.
Well, I mean, even with what they ended up doing, I can still understand the idea of, like, oh, we're supporting women making any decision they want, like, and she does still. Seemingly she chooses to go by female pronouns. I guess it also feels like that's, like, the beginning of her arc, and because she's not, like, comfortable yet going by other pronouns.
Right.
So I'm like, that's where I was like, it seems like as her friend, you should be, like, trying to help her along the path to, like, accept herself, not being like, you're one of the women.
So I will say, like, I have seen actually really, really recently, I was just reading a Twitter thread, and I don't, for the life of me, remember which user posted it, but it was all about, like, he's a trans man, and he was saying, like, there's the stereotype that, like, trans men are misogynistic, and that he was able to come to his, like, a full expression of his gender identity through, like, being in feminist spaces and, like, understanding more about, like, what feminism is and, like, so I'm not sure that those are necessarily
but they were specifically saying women supporting.
But here's the thing, I think in some ways that's them, like, as antithetical as it is, like, in some ways that's them being like, our feminism hasn't fully grasped that our friend could be one of these intersectional people. Is like, she's just a girl who's being bullied for being not super feminine, and that's not okay, because you don't have to be super feminine to be a girl. And it's like, right, but Roz is even correcting her grandmother again when she's calling Susie, like, a boy. And even though Susie's clearly, like, okay with it and seemingly happy about it, Roz is just like, blah, 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 like, kind of...
Could be a really interesting storyline. Could be handled very poorly.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I don't know. It's hard to know what is the characters making mistakes and the show knowing that they are to comment on it later versus the show making mistakes. Yeah. And then also, and that's where the signal. And also, I want to be clear. I am clearly not the end all be all on what's right and what's wrong in this. I'm sure I've said things that would upset some people. I'm trying my best to juggle this.
Yeah, I just you put it well. Of like, what's the show trying to set things up in a long game versus the show being like, we're just trying to accomplish a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, so as far as like the activism part of the show, they weren't so hard with it in the first few episodes, and like Wicca was supposed to be such a big thing, and then it just like disappears, and like
the stakes of Sabrina's life are grow quickly beyond Wicca, and then frankly, Susie and Roz independently as our like ambassadors for Wicca, then have their own things going on that are still connected to the coven, but are also about their personal growth.
Yeah.
Gosh, I wish they didn't have supernatural storylines.
The two of them.
Yeah.
Or at least not yet. So let's talk about Roz, and then I want to talk about them together. But so Roz has this whole thing where she's losing her vision, and it ends up being tied into being cursed by witches. Now she's gonna get the third eye or whatever.
The cunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sounds a lot like the culling.
So,
oh my god, I forgot there's this whole subplot about her father saying that her grandmother was like punished by blind.
But you're not being punished by blind because you have faith, but this thing is happening to you anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, what?
I forgot about that too.
Well, then she doesn't actually have faith, and her father doesn't realize it, and then they just didn't really do anything with that.
Season 2.
That stresses me out.
Yeah, so Roz, I guess, felt like, again, to be clear, it is great that they have a strong female black character on the show. I guess don't think that she was... It's like... And sometimes in some ways it feels almost worse when they're smart enough to have that character and then they treat them so poorly.
And then they pay lip service.
Yeah, where it's like they feel like they're congratulating themselves, and then I just feel like she is the least useful character on the show. Her whole arc... So she has that whole thing where she's breaking down, crying about... losing her sight.
She needs these books to be unbanned so that she can read them all.
Now, before we specifically get into the book things, I know you have feelings about that.
Seriously.
Yes. So Clara was saying off mic earlier that you've had some worries about your vision.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting thing to be explored in like grappling with physical limitations and being afraid of physical limitations and showing that on TV in a way that like deals with that fear in a like valid way and doesn't just say, well, you shouldn't be afraid of that.
Right.
And doesn't say, why are you upset? You'll still be able to do everything just fine. But is also like, look.
This is a tough thing.
You're gonna get through this. And I was really excited about that. And then they put in all of this stuff about visions.
Well, so here's the thing. And that episode, so I do think the actress does a good job breaking down there. But the fact that they built it so heavily around the book thing, to me, really ruined it. Because I, like, literally, my first thought was, so she's like, I will never be able to read them. I'm like,
why don't you just read on your own?
First of all, why do you need the books to be
why do they need to be in the library of the school? Second of all, audiobooks, Braille, like it just...
Have your friends read them to you in your club.
Like, I'm not saying that it isn't a sad thing to not be able to look at the page anymore and just read it, but the fact that nobody brings up, like, it would be one thing if at the end of the episode someone's like, hey, I got you a tutor for Braille or something, but nobody brings up these as options, and they end up, instead of taking it and focusing about the fact that she's losing her vision, they're focused on the fact that she's not going to be able to read, which just seems silly because there are numerous answers.
So it's like they make it seem where it's really difficult where they're like, she's clearly supposed to be like the wokest character, and also just, like, everything that she's establishing of, like, she takes this on, and then, like, she inadvertently becomes, like, kind of ableist and insulting. Like, she says something like, not even the thickest, ugliest glasses will let me read. And I'm just like, that is so offensive to so many people, probably. Like,
and at the same time,
what?
To be fair, like, so I don't like that either, but to be fair, like, I can understand the character saying or feeling that way.
So, but then again,
they need to have a pushback.
Right, again, but then again, that's the thing, where then I'm just like, right, but obviously, like, again, it's ableist of me to be like, you'll just get over losing your, like, obviously I'm not going through that, so I don't know how, like, how, the way you manifest your trauma is different. But then again, the way they resolve it is like, no, here, we're gonna start reading banned books in this club for the next few months. It's just like...
And even weirder,
but
like...
that's not, as you said, the most supportive way of getting through this.
I was so frustrated that she didn't have an adult in her life who could give her some sort of good advice other than, now you'll have supernatural vision. When her problem was, I'm afraid I won't be able to do the things that I love to do. And someone could have said, you can.
The show seems to forget that accessibility options exist as a thing. That's what I found, that's what made me angry. I'm like, yes, you can be upset that you're losing your vision. You can be upset that you're not going to be able to physically look at the book anymore. But you can't be upset that you won't be able to read anymore, because guess what? Blind people can read.
Right.
So,
it's specific. And that's nitpicky. But then to connect it to the point of her grandmother and the cunning and these visions, it's not like, your visions are your accessibility options.
Right, it's like, so bizarre.
It's just so weird.
She still doesn't,
it's like, but you'll have this other intuition about people, and it's just like...
That's not Braille.
That's not Braille.
Seeing Sabrina's inner witch being all warty and gross looking or whatever, that's not fixed. Like, what? What are they trying to do?
I understand.
Make her relevant to Sabrina's story.
They're trying to make it so that it's not just a human thing and it's not just a supernatural thing. They're trying to give her a supernatural story that has a human element behind it. That is what Buffy always did. That's what this always did. It used, Willow becoming a witch to connect with her lesbianism and to connect with addiction and things like that. And it's the same idea. It's just that I don't think that we spent enough time with Roz before that to care. Like, that was the first thing that you were supposed to make you, like, actually feel about her in a human way, and it was really clumsily handled.
Right.
And then it became her entire arc, is this that now I can see visions, which then ties me into my next big issue, which is for both Roz and Susie, that I don't like how that they found out about Sabrina by the end of season 1. I don't think that it was earned that they had that moment where they realized it, and then they had this really emotional scene with Sabrina in the bathroom or whatever. Like, I don't
We love
care.
you anyway.
Like, I'm just like it's not like
they undid all that great work for a necessary redemption in that one moment. It was sad.
I think that they could have, like, of all the things that they shouldn't have jammed into season 1. That one, I thought they were gonna go somewhere with I keep wanting to call her Mrs. Havisham, but
the
teacher. Lilith's teacher. Yeah, whatever.
Let's call her Miss Havisham.
Or Missy, because that was her Doctor Who character, and she still missed something. Like, the point is that she... Like, I thought she was going to be tempting them.
Yeah, there was the whole like...
Is that still happening?
Yeah,
Could it still happen?
It's really funny because this show honestly feels like it should have come out week after week, and they like changed things as it was happening.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because there are things that are just kind of dropped. Because when we first found out that Roz was losing her vision and Havisham was watching them, I was like, she's gonna offer her some
vision.
sort of vision.
A trade, a deal with the devil. Who someone else had to deal with the devil in the show.
Lawyer.
The lawyer, right?
The same episode.
The episode, right? So we were both just like, oh, right. So she knows that this is happening to Sabrina's friends. She's gonna be like, no one will judge you for your identity, and you can see and read all the books you want.
And it could have been an interesting thing of like, here's this supernatural evil thing that's like, you have no physical limitations. And then, like, dealing with a reality, which is like, You do. Also, you can still read. Like, these are some, like,
the other thing, the thing I also think it would have been great about it is I was like, I saw that and I was like, oh, they're going to take, like, the, like, perfect woke character and tempt her and make it clear that she isn't perfect. And then they just didn't do that. Yeah. And she just ended up becoming this, like,
but that's the thing.
person.
I don't think they don't want to undo that with her, clearly. Like, they want her to
be a paragon of wokeness.
Well, and I'm like, we could be overusing this word, but, like, at the end of the day, we're not the only ones who have this critique. I know that, but it's just like, look, again, it's what you said. It's just like, pat on the back over here, pat on the back of the hair. Look, these people we're representing.
Well, here's the thing is, people are way too negative about injecting social justice into storytelling. I'm not one of those people. No. I like people working and trying that, but this is the worst fear. This is what people rail against and why they say they don't, like,
it doesn't belong in my story.
Yeah, it's because you can't just put in this character who is the woke character and will not make mistakes.
Well, and I'm worried even more that, so now there's this, like, serious possibility for her to fall into another trope of, like, and she's gonna be the wise black character.
Yes.
And they'll go to
her grandmother already was.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, she could have just been a girl.
Yeah.
Struggling with, like, various things.
And maybe her friend feeling, and frankly, like, in a way, it's like, oh, she's a friend who's going through this traumatic thing. Yeah. And one of her best friends, one of her co-presidents of this club that no one cares about again, she switched schools without telling anyone. And it's like, oh, your friend said she was going to stand with you. And now did she abandon you in your hour of need? Like, is that going to be part of season 2?
Or is she just going to be, like, completely strong and, like, handle it all herself?
And look, I can still have my spooky powers, and without seeing, I can lead us to the school. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just, like, showed up at...
Yeah. I think, then as a sort of aside to that, like, I don't understand why it seems like the new normal on, like, for lack of a better word, superhero television and superhero media, right? I mean, I'm including Sabrina in superhero media. Why secret identities are, like, a bad thing? Like, nobody wants to have a secret identity for more than a season. And I'm just like, I want her to have 2 separate lives. I don't want all of her friends to have magical powers, at least not yet, because the whole point of that is her struggle between the 2 sides of her life and trying to juggle those things, and it's juggling the relatability, which is, if all your human relatable characters stop being human and relatable...
Maybe Miss Havisham did curse, or well, not curse, like, did make this stuff happen.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's like, oh, it's gifts, just gifts, and it means that Sabrina doesn't have to worry about them only belonging to the mortal world. And so then, like, that's dealt with, and then Harvey, I guess, is dealt with.
Well, the thing is, though, that Miss Havisham was upset that they didn't abandon her when they found out.
Oh, you're right.
She was,
Never mind.
Oh,
my brilliant idea. Done.
But here's the thing. So that's the whole problem. Like you put it, like, the whole thing is the dichotomy and her choosing. Yeah. But then as her friends get closer to, A, by knowing who she really is, B, by having their own powers / histories with witchcraft and covens, they are more incorporated in this world. We don't have more characters to back that up.
Yeah.
On the other side, and so no.
Humans left.
Yeah. Right. So the whole thing is then it's like, okay, I can see this having story for, like, 2 seasons worth of stuff. Yeah. But what's season 3 gonna be? Like, don't you want a season 3? Like.
Why would you get... I mean, one thing if just Harvey found out or if just Roz found out or something, right? But all 3 of them find out by the end of season 1.
And she confirms it
and
their
faces. They kill the principal.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of okay based on, like, but I don't know, just, like, all of the human relationships established. Right. So, like, even the bad ones don't exist. I get the football players.
Well,
they resolve.
Yeah, I mean, those they're all...
And I don't know how I feel about that also, as we're talking about sort of, like, social justice critiques. I don't know how I feel about that whole, like, blackmail them with, like, their homosexuality.
Oh
God.
The thing with the picture taking thing?
Not just that, but then being like, I'm so sorry, but that camp counselor did to you.
Yeah.
And then being like, whatever. I think arguably the only purely human character left now who's like untouched is Dr. Cerberus.
Right.
Yeah.
But even he, I think, is actually going to be
his eyes flashed.
I think he's a secret witch hunter.
Oh.
He's certainly a secret something.
Yeah,
he's a
something.
certain...
I think he's a werewolf.
That would be cool.
Just because I think it's sort of like someone out of...
He's dressed as a vampire, so
exactly.
he has to be a werewolf.
But the point is that even that, I'm just like, no one's human, and they just want to drop it. Like, they're not interested in writing this dichotomy.
On the flip side, I will say that, like, Buffy never really had a secret identity. Only her mom was the secret identity from.
Yeah.
And I think that ends in, like, season 2 or something. Maybe season 3. And it's... So, like,
but
it's not...
Buffy is Monster of the Week much more than Sabrina.
Yeah, and also the whole thing is her still trying to pull that off of retaining a normal life.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just like, maybe that'll be part of it, but without the Monster of the Week setting and with her being already so involved with, like, I just find it, I feel like they've pushed themselves into, they've kind of painted themselves into a corner, and I don't really
I think that they're going to find a way to reset. Because think about like how we ended that episode where it's like, oh my god, she found out that Miss Havisham, what's her actual name? She found out that she is following her. And it's like, well, I'm a witch. And it's like, okay. Like that feels like such classic Monster of the Week television.
Wardwell.
Yeah, it's like such classic Monster of the Week television. You're like, oh my god, they're gonna switch up the status quo. Like something huge happened. And it's like, well, how did they get out of that? Yeah, they got out of that.
And I'm just kind of like, all right, is season 3 really gonna be Monster of the Week? Probably not, but I'd rather watch that.
Well, the thing is, I think they're going to find... so this is one thing I do want to say. We've been saying negative stuff. I think what this show did really well is juggling that Monster of the Week with an overarching storyline, where this is the first Netflix show that I can think of, really, where they actually... They pace themselves in a good way, where it's like, there are numerous specific episodes. Each episode stands out as being, this is this episode. And yet, it all felt cohesive, and it had a good seasonal arc, that we started with the baptism, and we ended with her signing her. Yeah.
Yes, it is one of the more successfully paced Netflix shows that feels like it has more of a complete arc. It has its development of people, whether or not I agree with where they took that development. I think that I still liked it. I still am looking forward to season 2. My fears and concerns are more long-term than they are about, like,
the first season.
Yeah, the first season
itself.
I
think, and the thing is, I guess part of why I'm reacting to it is because it's also just a sign of the times. It's kind of an issue with television in general right now. So first, there's the general issue I was talking about with the superhero stuff, where it's like, you can't have... Secret identities are like a dirty word now. I don't really understand why that happened. But they're a dirty word, so you have... And you can't take your time with anything. Everything has to be a 10-episode season, so... And you can't have any filler, because filler is like the worst thing ever. Even though I'd say, like, actually a number of the episodes in this season are filler, and they're some of the best ones.
Can we just say, just really quickly, that dream episode, the Batty Bat episode was so well done, really overall, and so great, and exactly what filler should be, where it really goes into every single character. Yeah. Like, and just... Thank you for that episode.
And like, it makes you care about Zelda more. It makes you
Zelda's dream was great, and it makes me question what they really are trying to do with the religious stuff.
Well,
but
the other thing is, like, I the exorcism episode honestly is pretty filler too, but that's a really good episode. Yeah. Like, so.
And gets, I would say, the best character development for Susie, as I recall. I think that's all in that episode.
Yeah.
I think the best episode of the season is the Returned Man, which is episode 9. Although I do think the finale is quite good too. But I think that episode 9 is when everything sort of comes to a head, and she finally is making big mistakes. Yeah. And there's so much happens in that episode.
I could have sworn that 9 was the finale. I'm like, did I just see the finale? That's interesting. It's like, oh no, that wasn't the finale. There's one more. So so it's definitely, I definitely like the finale. But again, 9 felt so good and so put together.
Good show.
So
good times.
Well, I still have things to talk about, guys.
You do.
Okay?
We didn't hit all the points.
I want to talk about...
We talked about Satanism so
all
much.
The pentagrams.
Can I really quick disclaimer that I think is really important?
Okay.
That I think this show may or may not be very offensive to some Satanists and Wiccans.
Oh, no, not may or may not be. It is.
Well, I mean, like,
offensive.
to certain
Right.
Satanists and certain Wiccans. And, like, I am not a big fan of that, which is, another reason why tonally this stuff can be a little bit weird. Like, and just disclaimer, like, I'm not a Satanist or a Wiccan.
Yes.
But I think that should be said.
If we have any Satanist or Wiccan viewers / listeners, tell us what you think.
Well, the thing is here, it's a weird.
For sure.
I know so little about these things as real things, but I feel like the show isn't trying. It is in no way thinking that they're actually talking about real Satanism or Wiccanism, right? But the thing that's offensive about it is that they're just acting like those things aren't real. Right? So that's what's like.
So like I'm thinking about other shows that have dealt with religion in a way that I haven't found super offensive, and maybe other people do. But like Supernatural deals with angel and demon mythology. And it feels like fictionalized to an extent that I'm not like
offended.
What? But like the Archangel Gabriel would never it's okay, they made a fictional universe.
And I'm sure there are some Christians, just like there are some Christians that won't let you read Harry Potter, right? Or there will be some religious people who are like, oh, any sort of witchcraft is evil and you shouldn't be talking about it. But the majority of people would be level-headed and would say, they're not actually talking about the real thing. They're making a fictionalized fun story. And it's very clear. They're not talking about real Satanism here. But they're clearly talking about people with literal magic powers.
Right, so but when they're taking tenets about, like, it's all about, like, actually, at least what they're claiming with, like, it's free will, and it's against all these, like, these strictures of the false god, like, you know, all that, where it's, like, that is taken from reality.
Right, and, like, the emphasis on free will, as I understand it, could be wrong, correct me, is, like, LaVeyan Satanism, that, like, there are different branches of Satanism, but that's, like, one that is a really, like, core tenet. And so then to say, like, we're telling you this, but it's not true, is kind of obnoxious to make that
well, here's the thing. I mean, the thing that's complicated about it is they're doing that to talk about Christian hypocrisy. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's really like everything that they're saying bad about Satanism is really them saying something bad about Christianity.
So how does it make you feel when you're a Satanist who? I don't know.
Yeah, like. I they're just using because they couldn't be doing that. Here's the thing.
As usual, I worry slightly less about how the like group in power feel.
But that's what I was going to say. Though, what I was going to say is my point is they couldn't make a show that was constantly making fun of Christianity. So they made a show about Satanism to poke fun at Christianity in a way that is palatable.
Well, it's like Shakespeare with Romeo and Juliet. Like, they were like actually talking about England, but if we said it amongst those Italians who are all romantic and frivolous, then no one will realize it. That was the whole thing. Sorry.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah. That was good.
It's a reading.
Would you say they're parodying Christianity or organized, like...
religion in general?
I think it's more about I think I said it at the top, it's like about the patriarchal nature of a lot of monotheistic
that's what I'm saying is that they're clearly mixing metaphors. Yeah. But I do think it's specifically Christianity, to be honest. Because they're very specifically talking about baptism. Right. They keep talking about the false god and comparing it to how
you just suppose it with Catholicism.
Yeah, and they talk about like how the Catholic priests can be doing the
they go to limbo.
Yeah, they go to limbo. They
literally go to limbo.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yeah.
Their mom's there for some reason.
But on the flip side, so I mean, and I'm coming at it from a weird thing where like I grew up Catholic and I like respect Catholics. And I respect my family, who is still pretty devoutly Catholic. I consider myself agnostic, so I'm maybe not the best example of someone who'd be offended or whatever. But I think even if I was still like hardcore Catholic, I wouldn't be offended by this because it's clearly like, because there is hypocrisy in the church, there is hypocrisy in religion, there is patriarchy within the religion. Like, so, like,
so I am less, and I can understand if people are offended.
Yeah.
I am less immediately concerned about that than I am about other people's religions being used as a way to poke fun at a religion that has a lot of power over minority religions.
Okay, I can see
that. What were all the other things?
No, the main thing, which I do think we've covered a little bit, but I want to hit on, I guess as an parting thing, is how do you think that the show did as far as juggling its various tones that it had and various audiences? That it clearly was going after sort of Buffy vibe, that it had the horror elements, it had the coming of age stuff, it had the activism, it had the Riverdale-ish qualities, it had humor, it had like actual dark drama. Do you think that it juggled this well? I know for a lot of people they felt like it was kind of a tonal mishmash, and I think to me the only time that felt true was in episode 3, but for me generally I'm okay with tonal. I mean, as someone who's a big Buffy fan, I'm okay with it jumping as long as when it's supposed to be serious, it feels serious. I don't want to be laughing when they want me to be feeling serious.
Right. I'll say this. I definitely don't think the show is going for comedy as much as some people are like saying. Even if it did have some like lighthearted, sassy, snarky stuff that was a little bit of a reprieve.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, that's your breath, a fresh, like a little breathing room.
Yeah.
We need that. That's good. But and as someone who hasn't seen Riverdale and frankly doesn't really want to, I'm happy with the tone of this show. I like that it's overall just a dark drama with an interesting. It's a genre drama.
Yeah.
That's directed at young adults.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy with that. And I feel overall that their way of writing it is what I want out of it. And thumbs up.
Yeah. I think the thing is people are sort of conflating humor with cheese. And that's the thing where I'm like, I understand that the first 2 episodes are actually pretty cheese-free. Or at least they're trying to be, right? And so the fact that when we slowly end up having more cheesiness thrown in, I don't think that's really humor. It's just like fun. And like, I'm fine with that as long as when Harvey's brother dies, I'm not feeling like it's cheesy.
Right.
I do think that the one time that I feel like things sort of collided in a bad way was when they went to see that old lady who had been molested by a priest. And she was like this wacky old lady.
The witch.
Yeah.
The woods witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bit much. But
yeah, that was in the Feast to Feast episode. Yeah, where it's just like,
you know what, that episode overall had, I think actually that was the one that gave me the most trouble tonally.
You're right. Tonal. That was the most probably tonally.
The third
dissonant.
episode had like narrative issues or something, but that episode had weird tone issues. I think maybe also because I just like I get automatically more curious when they're trying to make a statement on the way the world is. And like, this is what Sabrina's conception of faith is, and we're talking about this, and meanwhile she's like giving Prudence a bath. I was sort of like,
and there's an orgy.
And then
that episode was going for a lot. So even then I feel like it has
ambitious,
a lot of
not in a bad way.
I think that I like that episode.
I liked it overall, but I agree that I think it has the most like, we're accomplishing a lot, and therefore it's going to have a lot of like narrative and tonal dissonance.
It was over the top. Like the other episodes I think weren't quite, either they were also over the top but then not as serious, or they were over the top in a dream, or like or they weren't over the top.
They were just
dramatic.
I will say, as someone who has seen some Riverdale, I do think that the activism stuff is part of the Riverdale-iness, but as far as them balancing the Riverdale stuff, I think they did actually a very nice job with the relationship part of the show. I don't think that they went too far into the, like, yes, they had the, like, all the, like, sexy moments of people taking their clothes off and stuff like that, but I don't think they went too far with it. Yes, they had cutesy relationship stuff, but that was not...
That's fine and cute.
It was fine and cute, and it wasn't too much. I will say, we ended up getting way more negative about this than I ever thought that I wanted to, because I really like this show.
Considering, it's like, I started with this show kind of being negative about it, and then I got positive, and now I'm getting back, like, in between again, so...
I mean, despite all the stuff we're saying, I still really love the show, and it like... This is a show that, like, I've been waiting for. Like,
yes.
It's difficult to talk about. Yeah. It's really easy to talk about things that are issues, and it's really hard to just talk about things that are
pretty
great.
And cute and lovely the characters are. Like,
and how awesome. Like, so much, and how fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching/listening. Please leave us comments down below in the YouTubes, or leave us a rating or review on the iTunes or other podcasty services. Those things would be swell. What else do we say? Oh, so there's going to be To All the Boys I Loved Before Our podcast that was new with Keith and Caitlin. That is still coming, but that has now been bumped. Now it is going to come out on the 20th of November.
Okay.
So that is that. That's coming soon. I hope you check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga.
And I'm Clara.
And I hope you're doing okay.